So here it is, the full review of the Bigme and GoodEreader Inknote. And I can vouch that the fingerprint scanner does work just fine. You have to set a password before it will let you enroll fingerprints. Now this device is very similar in so many ways to the Bigme B1 Pro Max Plus Color that a lot of the scores are going to be very similar. And so similar in fact that, well, you know, I enjoyed using the B1 Pro Max Plus Color, and so this device is no different in that way. It's still great if you like to use color for thinking, and it's still got lots of great features for communication and collaboration, and it will still make an excellent device, especially in the international business world. The cameras and the fingerprint sensor have only made the device stronger, and the cameras mean that I felt I've had to give it a better score for reading, because now of course you could scan in a physical document and read and annotate that later on the device. It also gets a higher score in communication because now you could use it for video calls. And it'll work in tent mode, and you've got microphones, speakers, and now a camera, and you can chat away just fine on this device. Whether that's something that you really would use or really want to use, I don't know. I'm not sure that's going to replace my laptop or even smartphone for video calls. For planning and organization, there's no change. You can just use any Android app for personal knowledge management, for calendaring, or for planning. But it still needs that dedicated drawing app that will let you access that full gamut of colors and really make this an incredible device for creation. But you do have the cameras, so there are some interesting ways that could possibly expand. Taking photos of things, getting colors from things, or tracing, including photos in presentations directly on the device, stuff like that. So it does get a slightly higher score in creativity there. When you put these scores up against the other scores of all the other devices that I've tried, these are the best. The B1 was already a point ahead of the bigger Max Lumi 2 and Quirk Logic paper. Now the Inknote has just smashed it on that test. Objectively, you'd have to say it was a winner. Objectively, you'd have to say, well, it does way more than any of these other tablets. Yet, when it came to the end of my 2 weeks of using this, I decided to go back onto the Books platform for my use case. Why is that? Well, it's more about the way it does what it does. And using it daily for 2 weeks, I just found that there were too many times when I was getting a bit frustrated at the long paths to access what I needed. It just was a bit of a clunky UI, and you can see there, for instance, it's refusing to open that book for some reason. And I'm used to Android, and so most of the things I could work out eventually, but the skin on the Android that they've added hasn't made it better, hasn't made it more intuitive, hasn't made it more simple to use. It's a whole new thing to learn as well. So this is where GoodEreader really needs to be evaluative and really push Bigme to develop that user interface. They need to use their expertise to really point out the things that are going to frustrate the end user and make them simpler and make them rock solid. They need to develop this UI to a point where it's absolutely seamless, and then we'll have a great device. Now, this is difficult, right? Because I'm a really positive guy and I pride myself on forgiving the flaws in people and in things, importantly. But GoodEreader are so positive that they rarely seem to pull out the stops and criticize any one device, let alone one with their name on it. And that's fine. They are a shop after all, but behind the scenes, they really need to be pointing out the things that need to improve about the software on this device. It's a great piece of hardware and all the elements are there. They just need to take the views of a really focused group of users, and they need to find out exactly what is and isn't working about actually using this device on a day-to-day basis, not reading the occasional manga comic on it or drawing squares. They need to get actual people who are using this device at work, their opinions, and find out where they need to improve it. And it may just be that there are actually whole elements of the UI that they need to redesign. So it kind of surprised me when the device came out so positively on that scoring system. So I decided to revisit the old scoring system for this review. And I've never scored the B1 on this scoring system either, so you can see it as pretty much equivalent for that as well. And at least this will be a bit fresh. I also thought this might somehow bear out my hunch that this wasn't really the best of the e-ink tablets so far. So here it is. For writing, you can use Bluetooth or even wired keyboards here, but the handwriting recognition really does leave something to be desired. With the ordinary keyboard, I was getting it suggesting Chinese symbols, which obviously wasn't what I was getting at. And even going into all the language settings, there was no way I could see to change this. So I downloaded Gboard, which of course that's, I think, the first thing that you should do on this device, by the way, is download Gboard and use that instead. And that has voice recognition, that has handwriting recognition as well, and that's perfectly fine. But it's not quite there natively, and whereas some of the competitors, the native handwriting and voice recognition is excellent. The actual writing experience is fine. The actual feel on the pens is a kind of felt kind of feel on a nice rough surface. It does feel pretty similar to the book's felt pens, so it's not quite the remarkable level or the Supernote feel. So I'm going to give it 5 for writing. Could work really, really well. Certainly apps like Microsoft Word or Google Docs, that will be a good experience typing into that. For reading, the PDF reader, Ereader, is just fine. It's good actually. It does have all the things that you need it to have. For instance, crop mode. And it can allow you to have side-by-side notebook, translate, or another document. It's a solid PDF reader. It's got almost all as good features as the books device, but I sometimes do wish I was reading on Ereader. Now, of course, you can also install any Android reading app that you like, for instance, Kindle. And I was just playing about with a Kindle app here and looking at comics, and comics look just fine on it as well. You will need to get used to doing a refresh on every page swipe. It's something like this. And it looks fantastic. And now, of course, for reading, there's the notebook on. And now, of course, for reading, you can scan a physical document, you can read and annotate on here. That's a really useful feature. Color figures in PDFs as well look fantastic. And I'd rather do e-learning modules on this screen than on any other. So for reading, I am going to give it 7. For art, it should be amazing. It's got the color e-ink screen, but unfortunately, it's got none of the choices of colors that I would want. The only colors you can use in the dedicated note-taking app are these, which is not many at all. I do not know why they haven't given you access to the full gamut of colors there. It seems so easy to do. They do have a nice pencil tool. A nice pencil tool coupled with full color gamut would make this lovely to draw on. And I'm sorry to say, it's not going to work well with third-party apps. Asked for Critter. That appears to be a no. Hopefully there's actually some information in there, I don't know. Alright, here we are. This looks nice. Oh, it's loading. There, we're in. New file. So the way it works, unfortunately, as you will see here, what colour is it? Is it a funny colour? So natively with any third-party app, the stylus is not going to have any kind of usable refresh rate or latency. And that's simply because it doesn't know that it's on an e-ink screen, so it isn't optimized for that. But then you can go in here and activate the global handwriting mode. And what that will use is it will use Bigme's pen tools to allow you to place a line and draw without any latency, and then it will then print that in whatever tool you used in Critter. So this can work, but you will have this delay where you kind of draw what you want to draw, and then it will become what it looks like in Critter. Now, I don't personally find that to be an enjoyable use. When you're drawing, you need to have immediate feedback. Icons will only work by touch, and the pen is only going to draw on top of the app and then print into the app afterwards. So it's something that you could get used to. And if you at a pinch wanted to start a drawing on here, like let's say you wanted to take a photograph, put it into this document, trace it, and then take that and work it up on something later, I could see that. But this is not going to replace an iPad for drawing or a proper drawing tablet on the computer. Art, I'm going to give a 5. It's got possibilities. I think you can see I'm still in that global handwriting mode. There are possibilities for the future of this though, and if they bring out a dedicated drawing app for this device, that could be really strong. For work, Android Office apps, they do benefit from being on the color screen, so let's go and have a look at one of those. The Word will work just fine on it, and let's look at OneNote. That's the one that people ask for most. You can see I had a little play with this earlier, and it works just fine. But again, you've got that workaround to actually use the stylus on the screen. You either put up with the delay or you use the workaround. Other e-ink tablet manufacturers have managed to work the software such that when you boot up OneNote, it automatically goes into that optimized state. It automatically goes into that global handwriting state. There's work to do there, the possibilities are there, and I would say that books have got it to the point where actually OneNote is pretty much usable. The other addition is that the fingerprint reader is a very nice thing to have for work, because if you are going to use this and sign into your office account, your work account, you will need to make it secure. And so there are some real benefits for working here on the device. And any workflow that you might use at work via Android apps, via cloud storage, you can of course use on here. It can be a really nice powerhouse for work. For presenting, well, it has a laser pointer, which is there. A double tap of the off button gives you that. Another nice feature is the buttons could advance a PowerPoint. That's really good. Or indeed you could screen share and have a PDF and use the pages as slides, and you could advance the PowerPoint with your Bluetooth thing. So it's essentially a presentation clicker built in. Nice. You could also use a screen share in video calls, and you could present by sharing a screen or sharing your video feed. And this is new territory for e-ink tablets. This is interesting. It'd be interesting to see whether people really want this feature and whether the next generation of all e-ink tablets have cameras on them as well. Personally, I can see the cameras for scanning and working with documents and using OCR to read documents and get text off them, but I think I'll be sticking to the computer or the phone for video calls. It's not quite going to come close to the newer iPads as well, with their kind of center stage selfie cam where it will follow you around the room. It's not quite there for presenting yet, but out of the ink tablets, it's certainly a strong showing for presenting. And lastly, design. It is an improvement on the B1. We've got the narrower bezels, of course. We've got the fingerprint reader, we've got the magnetic snap with charging, meaning that pen is nice and light compared to the B1 pen. The case is nicely designed too, and having the Bluetooth buttons on the pen is quite innovative. And I like where this is going. Putting the cameras on it is also an innovation which is welcome in this space. It's a well-designed piece of hardware. Let's hope that the software catches up with that design and we'll have a superb machine. For design, I'm going to give it 7 as well. In total, that's 38, and that is still the highest out of all of the devices that I've tried on this rating scale. So it is still objectively one of the best e-ink tablets that you can buy, and I do really like it. I do. I just think there's work to do. It's only one above the Max Lumi 2, and that is an incredible device. My conclusions about this device then: you might want to buy it and hope that the updates make it the device that it promises to be. The price is good. You get an A5 color e-ink screen here, which I still think is possibly the only A5 color e-ink screen you can readily get in the West. So if you're really keen to be an early adopter of color e-ink, then you'll forgive all the flaws, especially when you're enjoying reading your color PDFs, all those color diagrams, or of course your manga and your comics on this beautiful e-ink screen. If I were to put this on my comparison matrix, it's the ease of use that would really let this down. I have tried to pack in all of the features, but that has made it harder to use. And whereas I feel like books have done a lot of catching up on that user experience, Bigme have got a way to go yet. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't call using the books a easy to use experience, but it is streets ahead in terms of the elegance of the solutions they put in place. So I wouldn't recommend this unless you're already a really good user of tech and computers. But if you're happy to figure things out and find the right workflows and you can make it work, then this is a really special piece of tech.